Not the national anthem, but are you singing?
Not today.
Oh, I'm just kidding.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and I apologize, I'm gonna call my clips green. Superintendent's report, hey Jim.
Good evening, good evening. So a brief report, as we've only now with the 2 meetings a month and the week off. Just a couple things to bring out to folks. Sand Lake Trail, remember the group that's looking to bring a walking or biking trail to Sand Lake. It's kind of an exciting opportunity. We met with them. There's a benefit, we think, to us here in the district for a variety of reasons, and I listed some of them there. You know, one of the things that we've looked at quite extensively here is the crossing between 43 and the Sicko, or between the high school and Sicko across 43. The State Department of Transportation has been as helpful as they can be. There's limitations about what they can and can't do, but they've been kind of working with us. There's just not a lot of movement there. So part of this plan calls for a safer crossing, which would be nice, and they have some ideas. This group, they have some expertise, and they have some experience in doing this. It's also a big thing. This is probably my biggest reason. Part of that meeting was Mark Bubniak. One of the things we've talked about is our cross-country teams run on 43, right? Which is obviously not ideal, but that's part of their loop. And if this is done properly and comes to fruition, it would provide a path for students to run through kind of the Edwidge development there. It's following that rail trail. So there's some potential there to keep our kids off 43 when they run. That's obviously a good thing. And then just, as we kind of looked at a map of neighborhoods and stuff, it just provides a better opportunity for people to be able to walk or bike to the high school as opposed to, either walking on 43 or always having to drive. So a beautiful day like today, for example, when we have a track meet, baseball, softball, we have a lot of people here. So it'd be nice if you had more accessibility to walk. So we're interested. We told them that we support it. Obviously, it's not our deal in any way, shape, or form, except that they're looking at the high school as sort of being a point of termination. So the trail would sort of either begin or end, depending on how you look at it, somewhere in this vicinity, Veterans Park area around here. So they just want to see if we were supportive, and B, if we saw any benefit to it. So we had a good conversation with them. They are looking to move on, and they have a plan, and we said we are supportive. And then the second thing, just as we look after April break to turn the page to meet the candidates night and the budget hearing, kind of thinking back last year when we reflected a little bit before COVID, we ran the meet the candidates night the same night as the budget hearing, which we actually at that point were doing before the board meeting. So we want to go back to that, having all 3 events at the same night. So kind of wait to see how many candidates we get, how long we'll need to meet the candidate. From there, we can determine times. But kind of looking to do that. So we're using the budget hearing night, at least tentatively, to be that kind of all-encompassing night. Hopefully that it gets a little more interest or attention if we do those things at the same time, right, as opposed to kind of one-off events. And then last, I didn't put it in the report because I just thought it might be easier to talk through. We were very fortunate that we had a group of administrators over the April break, which is when administrators typically take their vacation, obviously. They volunteered to attend a conference down in Baltimore. And it ended up being a very, very worthwhile, very beneficial conference regarding MTSS and RTI. And Matt was one of the people who went. So I asked if he would just give us a quick kind of overview of the conference, the team that went, and sort of the systemic excitement that kind of brought about.
Sure, yeah, I wish I had remembered this. I know we talked about my ride back from Baltimore, and forgot all about that. Yeah, so yeah, it was an exceptional workshop. We're just so fortunate you go to these things. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. We knew it was a workshop specifically dealing with RTI, but really in the context of the work we've done. I'm kind of staring over at that poster on the wall, the 4 questions that you've seen in my presentation, the principal's presentations, about how we work with students in our classroom on teaching and learning, and this tied directly to all of that work we've been doing for the last 3 years, but got us to the next level. We needed a little bit of reinvigoration around some of the work. I think when you start something like this, after a couple of years, like, oh, we got this, and you just kind of let it run its course, this was reinvigorating for everyone at the table because there's more we can do and there's more we should do. So felt really fortunate to have a tremendous presenter We were able to have 3 principals as well as Kate Dorian join us. As Jim said, unfortunately, some people had prearranged vacation plans that week, so we grabbed who we could. We had 1 principal for each of the 3 levels. So great discussions around K-12. We literally were sitting there at a table all day and just had time. And we were hatching out what the next 3 months look like, what next year looks like, something that we don't really get the luxury of during the workday. The presenter was terrific about presenting for like 15 minutes and then giving us time to work and then coming back and teaching us new material. So we all walked out of there just feeling so great about the time we spent. It was worth the trip. Feel very fortunate. I would always, look forward to these opportunities, but you just never know what you're going to get. This was a real home run for all of us. So thank you for allowing us to attend, and it will benefit all of our students undoubtedly over the next couple of years because of the message we heard and the work we have planned.
I have one question for the benefit of anybody who may not know RTI.
Response to intervention.
Fantastic.
You want the
Thank you.
MTSS too?
It's funny because he talked a lot about that. He said they're pretty much synonymous now. So RTI, MTSS, AIS, they're all kind of under that same umbrella.
Multi-tier systems.
Yeah, there you go. Very good.
Sorry.
All right, thank you, Matt. We will move on to the
Oh, yes,
celebrations.
I
Oh.
just have one suggestion on the meeting with meet the candidates and the budget.
Oh, yeah.
I would like to suggest we do the budget first and then the meet the candidates, because people tend to leave after the meet the candidates, and I think it's important for people to hear our budget. Just my 2 cents. Take it or leave it.
All right. Thank you. To make it longer, we put it on a loop. So, all right, that concludes the presentation.
Thanks, Jim. It's our first public comment session. I have no sheets.
You don't want me.
It's acknowledgement. So we will move on to approval of the minutes for the March 25th, 2024 meeting. Jesse, and then second by Megan, and any discussion? All good. All those in favor of approving these minutes? That's unanimous on that. I need a motion to approve the consent business, special education, and personnel items. Megan first. Need a second to approve the consent, Jackie. Okay, discussion on consent from the app.
Jim, all due respect, this is probably for Karen.
Understood.
On item 5C, which is the property tax report card, for our proposed budget coming up for the 24-25 year, we plan to use over $850,000 in our reserves to balance the budget. Around 493 of that comes from assigned and 375 from unassigned in roundish numbers. I assume that this is going to deplete our reserves by this amount. Yet this property tax report card shows every reserve account we have increasing in the estimated 24-25 budget column there. So can you please help me understand which reserves are being used to make up the deficit and why they're not shown as decreasing in this report card?
Sure, so the property tax report card is a snapshot as of June 30th. So as we close out year end, we have to allocate interest earned in each reserve account to that reserve. So any any interest we make on the money in those funds has to go to that. So even the reserves that we're not adding to will still show an increase, and that's purely just the interest that we're accruing in those accounts. So the June 30th balance is going to be at the end, as we close out this year, we do have fund balance remaining. So we'll allocate some of that fund balance to those reserves. The reserves that we're using for the budget next year is not going to be reflected in that June 30th balance because we don't change those balances for next year's budget until after July 1st, when and if we use those reserves. So it's more just, here's the ending balance for this year, and it shows that we have the money in those reserves that we're planning on using for next year. And that's why there's that column at the very end that kind of describes what we're going to do. Those balances that we're planning on using are not deducted from that June 30th balance. They're still in there until next year. So as we close next year for June 30th, 2025, any reserves that we use will be reflected as of next year.
Okay, so you're taking the balance of the reserves, like both columns, on the same date, June 30th?
The ones that are reflected here.
Yeah,
So the one is the March 31st actual balance.
oh, okay, I get you. And
So-
the projected one is the projection as of June 30th?
Right, as
Before you used anything?
yeah, so the first column there, that's what that is. It's just like we have to give a snapshot of where we actually are this year and where we think we're gonna end up the end of the year to kind of give, taxpayers like, okay, you say you're gonna use reserves, you have the reserve to cover, that type of thing, just your transparency in terms of our fund balance.
Okay, makes total sense, thank you.
So those are the notes on the side of it, correct?
Right, so you can see, if you go to the workers' comp reserve, you can see it says plan transfer of 125 is included in the 24-25 budget. So what we're kind of saying, of that money, we're planning on using 125,000 for next year's budget. But that 125 has not yet been deducted from that number.
Right, so we planned a little over, you gave yourself a little cushion, right?
Yeah, well, it's just, money that's been in the reserve, and so that's the balance that's in there, but we're projecting. So remember, if you remember that chart we showed, we had multiple years where we'll be able to draw down those accounts, so that's that full amount there.
Right, but I think the numbers, they show 920, 975, right? We're not pulling all of that. 975. Is that right? It's 700, 150, and 125.
Right. That's the total of the reserves that we plan on using for next year.
Okay.
And that, can I just figure that,
Those are the unassigned reserves. In addition to that, you have almost 500 of assigned reserves.
Right, and so that's when you look at the top part of that report card, where there's a chart that shows adjusted, restricted, assigned, appropriated, and adjusted, and unrestricted. The assigned appropriated, that one that says estimated for 24-25 already includes that increase because that's showing 24-25 numbers and not current year. So it's kind of like mixing two different time periods on the same report, if that makes sense.
She's got- It's this one. Yes, this one. Two lines. This one. Those are just the tax here in addition. There's these.
do you guys do you want more info from Carrie, or is that?
I'm good.
Yeah, if there's more questions, I definitely don't want to cut anybody off, because it's a lot of numbers. I stared at it for a long time. I can see where you're saying, like, you're sort of mixing the time periods. And then, again, like at the end of, there's a percent margin of how under or how faithful to your projected budget you are, and if that is lower, right, if we're at the low end of that, we replenish what we don't use back into, up to the 4%. If anybody has more questions, like, that's, I don't want to rush anyone, because this is where we're at.
Okay.
Okay, no, it's good, okay. Any comments on any other stuff in the business or Jesse, go ahead.
Personnel one. Yes, two retirements I'd like to acknowledge. Brenda McFarland, for her 25 years of service, and Lynn Burdick for her 24 years of service. I want to wish them both well in their retirement. May it be long for them. But I just want to, because I know Lynn, I just want to acknowledge that her dedication to the district has not been surpassed. There's a lot of people who are dedicated, as I'm sure Brenda was too. But it's just, Linda has contributed a lot, and I know she's had some summers where they transferred their system and their email system, and like there was one summer where they were making 3 big changes at once, and she just took it in stride because that's how she is. So I just wanted to acknowledge her service to the district over the years and her service with a smile, and best of luck in the retirement.
Okay, all those in favor of approving consent special education personnel and business? All those in favor? That is unanimous. Okay. I just need a motion to approve this is the 23-24 school district calendar, so just an update. So Adam's gonna first and Megan's second, so discussion about this action to approve the revising the 23-24 school district calendar.
I do.
Year break.
I'm sure you guys have already done this, but I'm just curious. Is there a cost benefit savings to closing the school for a full day versus doing 2 half days, being transportation, things like that? Like, just trying to talk from a savings standpoint. Does it make sense to just shut down 1 full day? I'm sure you've looked at the options, but thought I would do my due diligence and pose the question to that.
Yeah, it's a good question. The issue is there's 2 requirements we have to fulfill. One is 180 school days, and one is a certain number of hours. So it's 900 at one level, 990 at the other. We're fine on the hours requirement, but if we do a half day, we get credit for a day of attendance. If we turn the 2 half days into 1 full day and 1 day off, we would be losing a day, and we'd go below the 180. And our state leave is tied to the 180.
Okay, so I misunderstood. I thought that we had the extra days, so that's why we were doing it. That's why we were moving to 2 half days. I thought we already fulfilled the requirement, the 180. And that's why we were.
We'll fulfill the requirement on that last half day. So in this calendar, it's June the 24th of Monday. Will be day 180.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess because when you said that you were reevaluating to see where we were, I thought, and we had those 3 extra snow days, I thought that meant that we had fulfilled, and that's why we were
If we
saying that.
if we don't get back the snow days, then we would. But we have to give them back to get to that number of 180.
Okay,
There's language around that we have to follow.
okay,
So,
so I just misunderstood.
yeah,
Okay, I was curious, it's like, why wouldn't we just save the money on transportation and all of that?
right.
And if we had fulfilled that requirement, okay.
And again, so it's this configuration of action that gets us to the 180.
Yeah, we'll fulfill the 180 and we'll fulfill the 900 at the K6 and the 990 at 712 per hour.
Any more discussion on calendar? If you're good, we can take a vote to approve these revisions. All those in favor? That is unanimous. Resolution, just gonna read this. I need a motion to approve the school district budget in the amount of $66,611,865 for the 2024-2025 school year for a presentation to the residents of Averill Park Central School District at the budget hearing on May 7th, 2024. Authorize the following proposition to be submitted to the voters for consideration at the annual meeting on Tuesday, May 21, 2024. Adam and Megan seconds. Discussion.
There are developments because the budget is delayed, but there are ongoing developments of, I guess I just don't understand the difference between just like what is actually happening and what is being discussed. And then I think I misread the removal of hold harmless as being the removal of the hold harmless provision, but is that conversely that they added the hold harmless back in? And I am just reading it backwards. So, right, I read it and I was so confused, and I thought, maybe I'm just tired, and I thought I would ask.
Yeah, I think the way we're understanding it is that because they're adding, they're restoring $400 million in funds, that they're removing the removal. I think that's how the provision itself will be in there, the hold harmless provision, as I understand it, will now be part of the plan. So, which is where that would, and the inflation factor number change, whatever that's going to be, which seems to be happening, would also contribute to that $400 million in increased funding for education, I guess.
Okay, and the most recent extension that they've filed takes us to possibly when?
I lost track. The last one I knew was April 11th, but I could be wrong. Right, the last one I knew was Thursday, but I had no idea if that's right anymore.
Okay, but we don't think it's gonna be this Thursday?
No, my understanding, my understanding is that they have extended to the 11th, but that they're expecting it to be probably 2 weeks later than that. But I don't know how firm that information is, or if I'm even correct in the first place. Because there's so many sources
Okay.
that's coming out, and they all, I don't know.
Is that kind of where, I heard extended till 11th and then,
Yeah, we haven't gotten anything formal.
There's been nothing, and I know I forwarded some of that stuff on, but there's a lot that just kind of comes through between the BOCES lobbying folks, and then we get emails from Niskus and his brothers. You know, John McDonald got back with some information, so we're just trying to piece it all together. At this point, I think the only news is that there's no budget, but that we're expecting an increase, right, because they're restoring the money, some. And there still seems to be bipartisan support to more properly fund education.
Right. Okay.
So I just want to say, so reading John's email, it definitely, I had to think about it for a while, that it was like a removal of the removal. Because I sort of said to myself, like, why is he being so perky, talking about how they're removing, like, this doesn't seem like something to be perky about, and then I sort of got there. But again, like, the increase of $400 million spread across the state, you know, is this do we know if this gets us back to, because I know here that you made a, 800 different budgets for us to sort of game it out. Does this get us back to like zero? Because like we were kind of budgeting on,
We don't know.
we just have no idea. And we won't know for 2 weeks when we have to approve this. Tonight or not. Okay. Well, somebody's on time. Supposedly. Is there more discussion? Jesse?
I have a couple things I want
And
to
then Adam, did you want to? Okay, couldn't tell if you were. Go ahead, Jesse.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Dr. Franchini and the entire team for their time, effort, and thought put into this budget that they're proposing to us to adopt to minimize the impact to our students. The information and the resources you provided throughout the process were helpful when we really sat down to think about the proposed budget and what the impact it was going to have on our district. And once again, when we're faced with cuts because our hands are tied with the state foundation aid and the tax levy cap, it really makes our process very challenging. And it's not easy. It's not easy for you folks. It's not easy for us sitting at the board table. It does weigh heavy on us. And we know no matter what decision we made, there is an impact. It impacts our students, the entire district, but especially our students. So I just, at some point in the future, because the way education is funded in New York State, our world-class district is going to feel it. We're going to feel the impact, and that ripples is going to ripple out to our community, not just our property value on our homes, but there's so much more that'll impact that is much, much harder to measure beyond our property values. So we need to keep lobbying to have things change in Albany the way education is funded. And I know someone mentioned it before, we might need to consider, if things don't change, putting a budget out in the future that is above the tax levy cap. And then we really need to educate the community as why it's important to support it, because we are a community and we all need each other. The older people need the younger people and vice versa. So I just, again, wanted to say thank you for the thought put into this budget and making, some, yet again, really tough decisions to minimize the impact to our students, because that is valuable and it'll keep us moving forward as the world-class district that we are. So appreciate it.
Yeah. So I'm a numbers guy, as you know, and the reason I support this budget is that the consumer price index, which measures inflation, is at about 4% year over year right now. And we're raising property taxes about 4% year over year. So that seems really fair. The other fair thing would be if New York State increased our funding by 4% of over what they gave us last year, but of course they're not. It may be 0, maybe 2%, maybe 3%. Nobody's ever mentioned anything bigger than 3%. So that stinks. And I don't like the idea of raising property taxes because I feel like I pay a lot of money in property taxes. But the reason I feel like I pay that is because I pay a whole lot of money in income taxes. The reason I feel like I pay too much of that is because I don't feel like I get a lot of that, a lot back out of that. And this is one place where, like as a community, we should be getting a whole lot back from the state, which is funded by income taxes, not property taxes. And so, I don't know, I'm not a big fan of New York State this year at all. I think given the cards that we were dealt, we're doing the best possible job. And I think we're doing a fair job in terms of the community. So that's why I'm really supportive of this budget.
Anybody else wants to go through? I just want to say a couple things. I'm also supporting this budget, among other things, just the work that's gone into, the thoughtfulness that's gone into this. There are, I know the kind of variables, even just this last weekend with school break and people getting sick. And there was, an eclipse and driving around and, people getting new jobs. And that's the number of variables that I have in my own household. We have grandparents, we have extended family, somebody needs a new car, right? And so when I look at the variables that Carrie has to deal with, the Jim, that, now what you were trying to do from a professional development standpoint, across the district of over 2,000. It's a lot of variables, to make fit with, declining input, from where it should be coming from, right? We all, and I'm not gonna say I'm happy to pay my taxes, but I understand it, and I'm happy to support this district. Of all the things you pay taxes for, you can see real outcomes. We know the teachers that we're working with, we know the staff members that are working with our kids, and we trust them. And, if we have to go above the tax cap sometime, I will sit down and over coffee with anybody and hash that out, if the need arises. But I will just say that going through this process, especially this year with the resources getting more and more limited, the trust that you guys, the administration has built over the last several years, certainly that I've been here, I'm not kind of taking anything for granted. I don't think any of us here are being spoon-fed any information. Everybody here comes up with a question, we get it answered in detail. Again, on all the different variables, right? There are enrollment issues, right? There's just enough of a nugget of truth when we say, oh, well, your enrollment is going down. So you should get rid of teachers. Well, which teachers? How much is the enrollment going down? Where is the enrollment going down? Is it enough? That's a whole, that's, again, one input. Enrollment is going down. By how much is it going down? So turning all those inputs into a workable number, in dollars and in people and in buses and in food. It is, again, a Herculean task. I just can't even imagine. But again, we've had these years of getting presentations. I remember when Carrie first started with us. And I remember the first time that we did like a 5-year projection. And again, the way that you explained it. And Mike was good at this too, for lay people who are not, like, I'm kind of numbers, but not yet, right? So explaining it to me in a way that I can understand, and putting in the work, so that we could kind of make a choice, like, blow the doors off at one end and shrink way down at the other. It engenders a trust, so that when you give me information, all of you guys, I am not questioning the validity of that information. I may not love it every time. It may be very frustrating. This whole process has been very frustrating, but I trust the thought and the work behind it, whether I like it or not. And that's kind of what this comes down to, is that you guys are making, you've given us a budget that is the very best that you can do with each input. And, you're always going to let somebody down, and I know that we are. And for that, I'm very sorry. Personally, I'm sorry. I know as a board, we would love to, give everybody all the money and all the time. But, that doesn't exist. And so I'm very, very grateful to have a group of people who are doing the absolute best that they can. I know I'm not always that good with my budget. And so, we're in a tricky situation. It may very well get even trickier. And so we'll support this. We'll see what happens going forward. And like the last thing I'm going to say, again, knowing for 24, 25, the door should be closed in Albany by now, but it's not. It's closing soon. But we didn't go into Albany with our advocacy team and get all the cookies we wanted. But we, again, started that process of building up trust, engendering trust, and building up relationships with the people who are going to be making these decisions in the future. For me, I don't know if Michelle wants to chime in, you know, that for sure, Megan, I can't imagine you saying, okay, we're done with advocacy now, the budget's like, this is an ongoing process, and so we'll keep doing the work that we've been doing over the last year, and building up those relationships that we started, so that, you know, we're not holding our stomachs again next year, that we have some kind of traction if we can get it. And so I'm just gonna say what I said before, even though, you know, we're gonna vote on this budget, we'll have a budget hearing, 24-25 is getting closer to being a done deal. It is never the wrong time to get in touch with your representative, ever. You know, often, early and often, I don't know, was that what they say? Talk to your representatives. They want to hear from you guys, not us, you guys. And we'll just try and build on the traction that we've started to work on this year. So, thank you, Carrie, thank you, Jeff, thank you guys for all the work you guys put into it. Best of a frustrating situation, and yeah, that's all I got. Okay. I'm really grateful for you guys. To everybody, you know, has a unique question, unique angle that's brought up a lot of information that I wouldn't have gotten myself, or Mary wouldn't have gotten herself. So, thanks, guys. All right. Hearing no further discussion, or anybody? Good? Okay. All those in favor of approving the school district budget in the amount of $66,611,865 for the 2024-2025 school year for presentation to the residents of Averill Park School District at the budget hearing on May 7th, 2024, and authorize the following proposition to be submitted to the voters for consideration at the annual meeting Tuesday, May 21st, 2024. All those in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you, guys. All right, second public comment period, still no board member reports. We have thanks for this.
So in a couple weeks, we're having our final wellness week for our students. We have yoga set up, we have a guest speaker coming in. And then this is something I'm very excited about, even though it's not for me, but I was super excited about this. Juniors and sophomores and freshmen actually are going to be able to go into workshops with the counselors and learn more about the college application process. And I think that'll be really helpful to them. And then the other thing, just one last thing, Mr. AP is next Saturday. Tickets will be sold at the door, so if you're available, definitely, it's going to be a good show. Everybody's working really hard, so.
For the 13th, right? 13th?
No, 20th.
The 20th.
Next Saturday.
Next Saturday.
Yes.
Seems safe. I don't have anything to report.
I also don't have anything further to report. Thanks.
I also don't have anything to report.
Getting off that easy. I want to take a moment to talk about the impact that our district has on our students. And I have two stories. One is more personal and recent. I had my annual IEP meeting for my very special middle child today. And those meetings are a challenge. If anybody's ever had to sit through an IEP meeting, it is really hard. I was very grateful to have it back in person because I feel like the connection you can make with the education team that's helping your kid is super important, and it's very hard to do that online. Although throughout the entire process, the online meetings, they definitely were doing their best to keep it, interactive, but it was nice to be back in person. It was really, really nice to do it at the high school level where my kid got to attend, which I think is super important. But it was really refreshing to have a whole group of adults who have no stake in the game really for your kid. You know, he's my DNA, so of course I care what happens to him, but they are all equally as invested in his success, and that is very important to me. Secondarily, I got a phone call from a graduated student over the weekend, a friend of my daughter's who is at college, and she's writing a paper. And the topic that she chose was economic disparity in education funding specific to rural and suburban schools. I didn't know she was picking it. I don't know why she picked it, but she called me and wanted to ask me questions about, you know, my experience in advocating for school districts. So I shared that with her. I also shared with her the names and phone numbers of every elected official that's been trying to help us, and I hope she calls them. And I also shared with her the names and phone numbers of every elected official who's not helping us, and I hope she calls them too. But I think it's important that we recognize that our students take their experiences within this district after they leave. They go out into the world. She's not local anymore. She's, you know, away at school, and she is imparting her experiences and having a positive impact where she is. And I think that's important for us to remember when we're going through these difficult times, that we are, even if secondarily, changing the world. So I can be happy that that's what we're doing. Thanks.
There's nothing more to say after that. Just good, nice, couple nice answers, so, I don't really have anything else in there.
The only thing I was gonna say is, it's spring sports time for sure, feels like that, so it's kind of wishing all the teams luck and reminding them to put on their sunblock. Safety first. It's really sunny out there. But then also, I just wanted to highlight the music program really quick because one session might have already happened, but I know also on the 20th is the New York State School Music Association. And they have their, they call it a festival, I don't know why. Right, it's very stressful, festival is supposed to, but it's, you know, it's where the kids who play an instrument and sing, they get graded, whatever, it's like, they have to sight read, it's pretty intense. And I just wanted to thank the music teachers for that, the work that they put into helping these kids achieve autism, because it's no small thing. And then, you know, the kids are just sort of out there in a room safely with a stranger who is not saying anything and looking very stern and scary, and you know, they got to go out there and keep it together and play nice music, or sing nice music. So, good luck to everybody who's doing NISMA, and thanks to the music department. So that's all I got. Thanks to you guys. Megan first. Motion. Jackie seconds. Motion to adjourn. All those in favor? There we go. That's also unanimous. We're good to go.
I think we made
17. That was like shorter than the eclipse.